We can be completely alone and feel totally at peace, or we can be surrounded by people and feel absolutely invisible. But the question isn't necessarily how much time we're spending alone, but why. Personally, I've always considered myself to be a bit of a lone wolf. I am hyper self-sufficient and independent, and I pride in my ability to go out and do things by myself. Yet as I began to challenge my own why for enjoying being alone so much, I noticed that in a way, not needing anybody isn't necessarily a preference, but rather it's something that I've just gotten comfortable and used to. Loneliness is an human existential experience, and none of us are excluded. I've been sitting with this thought for a while, and especially given where I am currently in the middle of nowhere, I want to dive in a little bit deeper, talking about the 3 different types of aloneness, how individualism and hyper-independence is costing us. Why is it that we can feel completely alone and like we do not belong in a room full of people that either we love or love us? And lastly, what might it look like to be a person, to be someone that has both a rich inner and outer life? Starting with solitude. Solitude feels restorative and chosen, even sometimes romantic and whimsical. Solitude for me can feel cinematic, full of presence and vibrance. It's having a morning alone that's quiet yet full, or you're watching a movie by yourself on a Tuesday for matinee, happy to exist with just yourself and not having to converse with anybody else. The second one is situational loneliness. You just moved, changed jobs, ended a relationship, lost friends for some reason, maybe lost all friends, so temporarily you feel and you live in the sense of loneliness. And then there is the existential loneliness, which is something that all of us cannot escape. Thomas Wolfe wrote, "The whole conviction of my life now rests upon the belief that loneliness, far from being a rare and curious phenomenon, is the central and inevitable fact of human existence." The existential loneliness has driven us to seek romantic loves and nourishing friendships, or external achievements, fame, fortune. And if all else fails, we must then find our way again back home and find comfort and peace in solitude. As Hannah Arendt writes, "What makes loneliness so unbearable is the loss of one's own self, which can be realized in solitude, but confirmed in its identity only by the trusting and trustworthy company of equals." So in essence, solitude is where we find ourselves, but we need others in order to confirm that self. What I've come to experience is that solitude isn't necessarily being alone, but being in relationship with oneself and how that relationship feels, whether it's familiar or foreign, whether you're a team or fractured parts, whether it's loving or critical, and it determines how we move through the world, how much of ourselves we bring into a room, and whether nourishment and connection can actually be received when we do have it from other people. I have always been that low maintenance friend. I can go months or even years without talking to a close friend, and we can still maintain that strong bond, which is totally fine and normal. But I've been traveling again for the last 2 months, and a couple of days ago, a good friend of mine called, and I had just had a long day, was ready to check out and veg out. And I had to remind myself that it takes effort to maintain quality friendships. And because I value all my friendships so much that I ended up deciding to call her back. And it was actually a lot less taxing and it was a lot more fulfilling than I had imagined in my head. Of course, not everyone is gonna have this issue. Some of you might love talking on the phone with your friends. But if you are someone who considers yourself hyper independent and that low maintenance friend, it's worth asking yourself, how much more fulfilling could it be if you just put 10 to 15% more effort into maintaining those friendships, relationships, or even into meeting new people? But sometimes it goes a little bit deeper than just not picking up the phone. For some of us, maybe solitude wasn't a choice initially. Maybe it was enforced loneliness from feeling like we don't belong somewhere or that we consistently find ourselves out of place in different groups of people. Or maybe there was one shocking betrayal that turned being alone into our sense of comfort and safety, a protection. And it works for a while, being alone at last. We're liberated, autonomous, and finally at peace. So we then do it more and more and more. And then eventually everything on the other side of this comfort wall becomes uncomfortable and unfamiliar. So we start justifying with these popular phrases like, "I'm just protecting my peace," or "I don't have the bandwidth," I'm locked in doing me. And none of those things are wrong exactly, but where is the scale landing? One of my absolute favorite feelings in the world is being in a room full of people that I feel cared for and loved by, and listening to them talk in the background while I slowly drift off and fall asleep. Well, if I never pick up the phone, I'll never find myself in that room. Strong social connections are a top predictor of longevity and health, rivaling well-known factors like diet, exercise, and even smoking. People with a robust social network have a 50% higher likelihood of survival, while isolation increases the risk of premature death by 26 to 29%. So, what is your peace actually keeping you from? The only thing worse than being alone is feeling lonely in the company or presence of another. How is it that we can be surrounded by person or people that we love or that claim that they love us, yet still feel this glass, like we're there, but we're not in there? I think there are two primary factors that could be at play here. First one is self-concealment, and the second one I'm going to call the hungry ghost. Some of us struggle more with this than others. We're chameleons that can change our faces depending on the room we're in, the people we're with. And that's a natural and human thing to do. We code switch when we're talking to colleagues versus our best friend. However, it becomes a bit of a different situation if the core of who we are, the core of those interactions, always leave us feeling empty, feeling like we're exhausted, because we had to conceal or pretend to be another version of ourselves. And I'll be the first to say that not everyone deserves every version of you. For example, what people see in my videos is just a part of who I am. The most unhinged version of me is reserved for a handful of people. But that's not necessarily concealment, rather it's more discernment. But the core of who I am, what I think, what I value, how I actually feel, that doesn't shift depending on who I'm with. When we curate ourselves or conceal parts of who we are, it doesn't give the world or people the opportunity to decide if we are in fact their cup of tea. I reference this book all the time, The Courage to Be Disliked. The primary principle is this: how I show up in the world, the things I say, do, and present. That is my task, my responsibility, and I am absolutely held accountable for that. But how I am received by others or perceived by others, that is not my task. It's not my responsibility because I have no control over it. And the sooner that we can digest and integrate this idea, the more free we will feel. But the most challenging version of this is in our closest relationships. When we've been editing ourselves for so long and someone tells us that they love us, it cannot land, or unconsciously we cannot believe it. Because somewhere deep down, we know that they've been only given the version of us that we have allowed them to see. There's a concept in Buddhist philosophy, and there's quite a few different variations of this, but essentially a hungry ghost is an entity that is insatiable, always hungry for whatever it is they're hungry for. This is different from self-concealment. We can be with someone, no editing or performing, and be completely ourselves, but the hunger isn't about what we're able to show them, but what we're able to receive. Like when a friend tells you that they love you and you wonder, do I deserve that? Or a partner who has shown up for you every single day, yet you still wonder when they will leave. It's being in a room full of people who genuinely want you there, yet you cannot help but feel like you're always an outsider. This type of loneliness can only be fed by ourselves. I think that when we have not yet experienced something in our relationship with ourselves, it cannot be fully received or land or believed when it comes from the external sources. It's like a logic problem. Our brain and our body is smart, and it thinks, if I cannot love and hold all of me, then why should anyone else want to, be able to, or do it? If either of those resonated with you, I did create a course called Return to Self, and I think it's a great starting point. And I'll leave the details down below. There's a current discount on it if you want to check it out. Learning to be in our own company can start small. You don't have to go full boss mode in isolation. It can be sitting for 5 minutes quietly outside or in your favorite little nook in your home. It can be having a simple, minimal morning routine that isn't there to help you optimize your day, but simply to give yourself a little bit of time to be with you. It can be decorating or adorning yourself with things that make you feel most special and most you. And then we can start to do things like going to the movies by ourselves, because when you're watching a movie, you don't need to talk to anybody anyways. It could be taking your book with you to have lunch and people watch instead of needing to incessantly chat with another person. It could be sitting with your thoughts and cultivating a kind of presence and relationship and attentiveness that you crave or want from others, but haven't experimented with yourself first. I think for me, it's been essential to cultivate that relationship with myself. It's been easy because I've spent a lot of time alone. But every time I go away into periods of solitude, I actually feel like I return more fully myself. It's hard when we're influenced by social media, by friends, siblings, family, loved ones. And when you actually finally step away from all of the noise, it's a lot easier to remember or to shed those layers, to discover who you are, and an iteration, perhaps a new one. But it requires that environment where nothing is sticking to you or influencing you, and you are properly in solitude. Of course, nature is one of the simplest ways to accomplish this. And when we do cultivate our relationship with ourselves, this self-concealment can begin to fade, and it can be replaced with discernment instead. Even the hungry ghost, if we start to actually spend quality time cultivating that relationship, we begin to trust and see that if I can do this for me, if I can sit with my uncomfortable feelings, if I can love all my imperfections and quirks, then perhaps, just perhaps, others could as well. And if you are a little rusty in the socializing department, which I have definitely been in many moments in my life, it's okay. You're not looking for your tribe or your soulmates overnight. In fact, I saw this post on Substack that really stuck with me. And it's this idea that when we stop needing every single person to be our ride or die, it actually makes everything a lot easier and better. Some people are going out friends. Some people are grabbing a coffee friend. Some people are gym buddies. I definitely am guilty of this, where I feel like my friends need to fill sort of every outlet or every facet of who I am, but it's not necessary and it's not realistic. And we end up writing a lot more people off because they don't meet every single criteria that we think we need someone to be. A joyful, at peace solitude and fulfilling connections isn't two things we have to choose between. They actually will feed into each other and change over time, or even change seasonally, depending on where we are in our lives. And it never has to be perfect or fully figured out, but only you will know what it is that you've been avoiding and what it is that you're actually hungry for. If you want to connect more, you can find me on different social media platforms. I also have a Substack newsletter that I send out, and I'll link everything down below. Thank you for spending time here with me today, and until next time.